Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Yes, my current path is about strategic relationships, and there are no more complicated and undoubtedly no more important relationships than those with their family. So when my son invited me to join him on this 90-mile hike on the John Muir Trail, I was both terrified and delighted. I was delighted that he would want to spend a whole week with his mother, and I was terrified that I might not be able to do it. But delighted won out, and we set about planning our trip. All of my children are in their late 20s and early 30s. And as a parent, one of the things that at that age is really difficult is learning how to be a part of their life, but to stop trying to parent them as though they are children. So I saw this trip as an opportunity for me to spend some time on his turf. We would be in a situation where I was going to be much more dependent on him than he was on me. In today's speech, I would like to share a couple of things with you. First, the awesome and breathtaking beauty that is the John Muir Trail. And second, how the experience impacted my relationship with my son. Let's see, scooch here. Okay, here we are on the morning that we set out. John Muir famously quoted, "Who has not felt the urge to throw a loaf of bread and a pound of tea in an old sack and jump over the back fence?" I can tell you that John Muir never visited an REI. The old sack is now a $300 backpack, and the loaf of bread is now a freeze-dried Thai curry. It takes a lot of expensive equipment to rough it for a week these days. The entire John Muir Trail is 214 miles long, beginning in Yosemite Valley and ending at Mount Whitney in the Sequoia National Forest. Our plan was to start at Lake Edison and hike to Yosemite Valley, which is basically the northern three sections of the trail. Almost the entire trail and all of the part that we did is over 8,000 feet in elevation. And that was my first challenge. On day one, we went from 8,000 feet to 10,500 feet, and I got really altitude sick. It was very hard that first day, and I thought I had made a terrible, terrible mistake. But the really wonderful thing about that first day was discovering what a kind and patient man my son has become. He took most of the weight out of my backpack, and he made camp for us, and he even made me chamomile tea to try and settle my stomach. After the first day, I acclimated, and then I could just really enjoy the scenery, and it was glorious. Everywhere you looked, it was just breathtaking. And I had the most wonderful tour guide. My son knew the name of every lake and river and peak and meadow. So not only did I have the opportunity to enjoy the beauty of the mountains around us, but I was also able to see the joy reflected in his face as he talked about this area that he loves so very much. Although things got easier for me after the first few days and I acclimated a bit, we still covered about 8 to 10 miles a day, and it was still very physically challenging for me. So my son has a series of pictures that he refers to as, "And she needed a rest." Wow. He has tons of pictures of me in a lying down position. It was a much slower pace than what he normally hikes, and he was very patient with me when I needed a rest. On the third day, we made it to Redd's Meadows, and we were able to take a shower and have a hot meal and a cold beer. And we also were able to visit Devil's Post Pile, which is this just amazing rock formation that was right off the trail. The next challenge for me was Donahue Pass. It was the highest point that we hiked over. It was over 11,000 feet. It was really rocky and really steep.
11,000 feet.
I worried that the altitude sickness would come back. Thankfully, it did not. And when we reached the top, we actually met up with another mother and son team and were able to hike with them down the other side of the mountain, which was really a wonderful way to end the trip. Although there were many difficult things about this trip. It was really cold at night. My hair looked awful. I got tired of trail food, and I have a whole new appreciation for indoor plumbing. But there were also things that I really, really missed when we got home. And mostly I missed the talks that we had every evening as we were making dinner and watching the sun go down. There were no iPhones and no televisions. There was no distractions of work or friends to steal him away. And in the space of that peace and stillness, we had conversations that would have never happened otherwise. Somewhere along the John Muir Trail, I learned to communicate with my son in a different and much richer way. Not me telling him to cut his hair or save money or look for a better job, but just listening to what his dreams were for the future and how he saw his place in the world. John Muir said many, many very profound things in his life. But the thing that I would like to leave you with is this one. In every walk with nature, one receives far more than they sought. And indeed, I did. I return the podium to you, Mr. Toastmaster.